The announcement is in, and we now know what is going to be in the student loan forgiveness and how this goes. So we'll be talking a we'll be talking a lot about that, and some of the reactions to this as well. There are some people that say this, obviously, of course, because it's a government program and people love their free gives. doesn't go far enough, and there are other people pointing out the fact that, hey, we can afford to do this right now. So we'll be talking about all of that, and that'll probably take up most of the show. In other news, if we can get out to there, Biden has also issued a new rule to protect DACA, to keep it from being legally challenged ever again. So, oops, microphone check, or headphone check, sorry about that. So we'll talk just a bit about that and whether or not this is ripe for legal challenge or not. Marjorie Taylor Greene was the victim of a swatting at her residence. So is this the other side being afraid, or is this a carefully planted plant to get other people talking, maybe get somebody out to be violent? I don't know. We'll talk a bit about that and where we go with that and what happens there. And finally, if we can clear off the rest of the top of the show, Charlie Crist, the newly minted nominee for Democrat gubernatorial candidate of Florida, sorry, lost my words there for a second, has come out and said that he doesn't even want any votes from DeSantis supporters. And, well, of the Florida people that I know, I really don't think that's going to be a problem for him. It is going to be all this and more. Welcome back to the main channel. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, Edheads. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. We have a ton of stuff, and the majority of it, the vast majority of the stuff that we have on the stack today has to do with the student loan forgiveness, because there are a lot of people that have a lot of thoughts about this. And, I mean, there's other stuff that's going on around the world, too, but this seems to be the only thing that anybody wants to talk about, for good reason. I mean, there are things about this that are timed, and there's more about this that's timed than just the fact that they're going to start buying votes before the midterms. I do think that there are some other indicators there and other ways to go back and try to make this work for the midterm advantage. And yes, I do think this is all entire midterm thing, because they are facing down a situation where they very well could lose the Senate. It's about 50-50 right now. It is in favor of Democrats right now, just ever so slightly, but it's a 50-50 proposition at this point. So we'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about what they're trying to do with this. We'll be talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene, maybe some Elon Musk. But, I mean, surprisingly enough, there's actually a WAPO op-ed, which I couldn't believe that is saying that this may not be a good idea right now. So we'll be talking about that. We'll crunch some of the numbers and see how close we actually got to the initial Build Back Better agenda. But before we get into it, let's talk just a bit about finance here. And before we do, make sure you guys go check out great programming such as the Daily Ignoramus, the Breakdown with Birkenhoff, the R-Rated Conservative, the Porch Boys. Go check out at Tweets by Brit. Go check out KTZ is not here. I think that's the new one right now. But go check all of them out. KTZed is going to be on PJ Patriot, and do check out PJ Patriot as well. He needs the support. He needs the viewers. Mr. Behavior, the No Gimmicks podcast, go check all of them out. They're all great friends to news media, and they are a common man who can get you news by the common man and for the common man as well. And plus, we'll let Quest in here too. We know that he's just a little bit above the common man, but we'll let him in too, because we like Quest around here. All right, let's get started. Let's get the live chat up so I can see what you guys are doing. And let's talk finance, looking in at the Dow. On the Dow was just up ever so slightly yesterday. Just ever so slightly up to 32,969.23. The futures are also looking up right now, but it was a struggle session throughout the day for the Dow yesterday. It came up, it jumped back down, and nobody really knew where it was going to land, but it did land slightly up, so we'll watch this and continue to see where this goes. On the Bitcoin is on the day up 353.50, a little bit over 1.5% throughout the day, so it's mounting another rise here. We'll see if that continues to rise, or if we do drop back below the 21,000 mark, or even below the 20,000 mark yet again. It's also seemed to have a bit of a struggle session. Looking at the 5-day, you just see these troughs and valleys, these massive stalactites and stalagmites sitting out here. It's been a struggle for the Bitcoin to find its footing and find its place, because people are trying to keep as many US dollars in their pocket as possible, which is not always the smartest thing in the world to do, but still something that you've got to do if you want to commit commerce in this country. So we'll continue to talk about this. And the gas, it does look like the gas is starting to come down just a little bit again. Not for 70 days straight like they try to tell us here. Gas Buddy, by the way, stands with Ukraine. Take that for what it is. The Shell in Lodi and the Quick Trip in Lodi are both at 324 and 326 respectively. The Mobile in Lodi is at 328. Coming into Madison proper, we are back into the 330 range. 335 into Sun Prairie, or 334 in Madison proper. So there are a couple outliers here, like the Costco in Sun Prairie still up to 338, and the BP in Lodi up to 337. But it seems to be around the area, a bit of a scatter shot around the low 320s to high 330s area. So it'll kind of depend, and maybe you want to drive around if you're in the Madison area and find the best shot. These gas prices may or may not affect your local gas prices, so always check with your local gas buddy. But this gives you an idea of just kind of, we've been following this for, what have we been following this for? 4 months? Talking about where the gas is and where you should go and get it, and kind of using this to track where it is. Instead of using the national average, just kind of using a local station or a local set of stations to determine where it's going for the rest of the country. So that's what we see out of that. All right, let's see what IBD has to say. From Investors Business Daily, Dow futures rise on China stimulus. NVIDIA leads earnings movers. Tesla rallies after stock split. From Ed Carson. Futures rose Thursday along with the S&P and the NASDAQ futures, with new China stimulus providing a boost ahead of Friday's speech from the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. NVIDIA, Salesforce, Snowflake, and Dollar General headlined overnight earnings, while Tesla stock rose after a 3-for-1 split. The market rally rose slightly on Wednesday, though the major indices again hit resistance at their 21-day moving average. Investors didn't want to commit heavily before Friday's speech from Fed Chief Jerome Powell. The Jackson Hole Monetary Policy Symposium starts today. Meanwhile, Apple, the top investment holding of Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway, edged higher Wednesday. Apple now has a valid handle on its daily chart. Tesla rose modestly early Thursday, testing key levels after hitting resistance on Wednesday. A 3-for-1 Tesla stock split took place overnight. On the earnings, NVIDIA offers a view into semiconductors, notably the data center and gaming sectors. Salesforce earnings signals demand for business software, so does analytics firm Snowflake, while the Snowflake stock reaction gives an indication of investor demand for highly valued former tech leaders. NVIDIA earnings were roughly in line with lowered guidance as gaming revenue fell 1/3, but data center revenue jumped 61%. The chip giant guided lower on Q3 revenue. NVIDIA fell 3% in pre-market trade. NVIDIA stock edged up 0.2% on Wednesday to 172.22. Salesforce earnings topped views, but the software giant guided low for the current quarter despite a new $10 billion buyback program. CRM declined 8% in extended trade. Salesforce climbed 2.3% to 180.01 on Wednesday. Snowflake reported a wider-than-expected Q2 loss, but the 83% revenue gain beat. Snowflake soared 19% on Thursday. Snowflake stock popped 4.2% to 160.28 on Wednesday, bouncing off the 50-day line after pulling back over the past few weeks. Meanwhile, Splunk Box Autodesk added to busy software lineup after the close, with storage giant NetApp and housewares and furnishing retailer Williams-Sonoma also reporting. Autodesk, NetApp, and WSM rose overnight. Splunk and Box fell. Early Thursday, Dollar General reported better than expected second quarter earnings, with rival Dollar Tree cut EPS guidance. Dollar General fell modestly after Dollar Tree reported threatening undercut a buy point. Dollar Tree's stock tumbled, set to knife below its 50-day line. On the futures, Dow futures were up 0.35 versus fair value. CRM is a drag on blue chips. S&P futures climbed 0.65, and the Nasdaq rose 0.8. China unveiled a $44 billion new stimulus measures to support an ailing economy pressured by COVID and power restrictions. Copper futures rose 1%. Crude oil edged higher, so if you've got some copper you need to go bring over to the recycling center, now is the time to do it. The 10-year yield fell 1 point to 3.1%. Without the GDP to back it up, it's 3% rise, by the way. And remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. Let's grab one from CNBC really quick, and then we will go talk about student loans, and we have got a lot to talk about there, including Biden making a racist once again. I don't know how he continues to do that. From CNBC, stock futures are higher after Dow, S&P break a 3-day slide. Futures were higher Thursday after all three major averages ended higher during the daily session. The Dow gained 118 points, or 0.4%. The S&P and the Nasdaq climbed 0.6 respectively. We talked about Snowflake. We talked about Salesforce. The Dow on Wednesday rose slightly along with the S&P for both averages. Gains snapped 3-day losing streaks. The tech-heavy Nasdaq also ticked up 0.41%. The market action took place as investors await the start of the Jackson Hole Economic Symposium, which we'll probably be talking about that more on through the week, but it does look like we are starting to see some rise here. The jobless claims are falling, the initial jobless claims, telling us that there are people that are running out, possibly not for the best jobs in the world, but possibly for new jobs. This coming in line where Ford is getting ready to go and cut 3,000 jobs along with a slew of other employers, especially on the West Coast, but all over the country as well. And revisions show a smaller GDP decline in the second quarter. Yeah, but it's still a decline. The Bureau of Economic Analysis on Thursday said that GDP contracted by 0.6 in the second quarter. The advance estimate released last month showed a decline of 0.9%. That's still a recession. I don't know if you understand this or not, but that's still a recession. So, we'll see where that goes. But they're going to try to gaslight you and say that, oh no, everything's fine, everything's great. Now for the vote buying segment of this here. Starting with NBC. Biden to cancel up to $10,000 in federal student loan debt for certain borrowers and up to $20,000 for Pell Grant recipients. From Lauren Egan, Kristen Welker, and Ali Vitali. And right after this, I have video of the House Plant-in-Chief himself. President Biden announced Wednesday that he will cancel $10,000 in federal student loans for millions of borrowers, following through on a campaign promise to address the burden of student debt. Borrowers who earn less than $125,000 a year or $250,000 for couples who file taxes jointly will be eligible for debt cancellation. Pell Grant recipients, who make up the majority of student loan borrowers, will be eligible for an additional $10,000 in debt relief for a total of $20,000. Certain restrictions may apply. Biden is also extending the pause on federal student loan payments for a final time. No, it's not. It's not the final time. Just so you know, this is going to keep going. Through December 31st, it had previously been scheduled to expire on August 31st. Speaking at the White House, Biden described how the cost of higher education has grown significantly over the past few decades. Guess what? That's because of government intervention. Just so you know. And this is going to make it worse. and an entire generation, it's now saddled with unsustainable debt in exchange for an attempt at least at a college degree, Biden said. The burden is so heavy that even if you graduate, you may not have access to a middle-class life that a college degree once provided, man. Come on. Borrowers can qualify for debt forgiveness based on their incomes in either the 2020 or the 2021 tax year. To receive relief, most qualified borrowers will still need to fill out an application with the Education Department, which said it will make the forms available in the coming weeks. The debt forgiveness applies to undergraduate, graduate, and Parent Plus loans. Current students can also qualify, but students who are claimed as dependents will be eligible based on their parents' income rather than their own. Democrats and student debt relief advocates have pressured Biden for months to use his presidential authority to cancel debt, which it's still not clear, by the way, that he has, just so you know. We'll be talking about that. Ahead of the announcement, he had come under criticism for waiting until just days before the August 31st deadline to announce an extension of the loan payment moratorium, leaving millions of borrowers unclear about whether they would have to start making payments for the first time in more than 2 years. Biden on Wednesday also announced a new income-driven repayment plan that would cap monthly payments for undergraduate loans at 5% of a borrower's discretionary income, down from the rate of 10% under most existing plans. The White House said that 43 million student loan borrowers will benefit from and that as many as 20 million borrowers will have their full remaining student loan balances wiped out. Now, I'm not 100% against the income-driven plan and bringing it down to a sustainable amount. It is still holding the feet over the fire, the people who sign on the dotted line. Don't get me wrong, it's still holding their feet over the fire, but it is giving them a chance to both make payments out to the government, even though they'll most likely have to be doing so for the next 70 years, but still allowing them to participate more fully in the economy. It's still not going to put them in the position where they can go buy the house, which is what Elizabeth Warren is all worried about, but it is going to get them some discretionary spending, so they buy the TV, so they buy the video game system, etc., which I mean they're doing anyway, but it puts them in a position to be able to still stimulate the economy instead of just dumping everything that they have into their student loan payments. Now, yes, they should be getting them out and paid off. They absolutely should. 100%. But if we lock everybody in who's in this position into a point where they can't go out and buy manufactured goods or even food at some point, we start to see more of a decline into the GDP. It is a balancing act. But of course, as we go along, we're going to start to see the more push, and we're already seeing it from the NAACP to go and get rid of more of this. But one of the other things that I do like about this, one of the few good points to this, is that this is by application. This is not just Biden's going down and telling all the servicers, hey, the IRS will get you a list of everybody that makes under 125, and just get rid of it. You actually do have to opt into this. If you guys will remember my proposal for student debt years ago, back when I still had short hair, that was one of the things that I pointed out. I said, okay, let's go talk about getting the interest rate cut out, and let's set up a government program where if you did, because I do want the people who were responsible to get the benefit of it as well. If you did pay off your loans, you're eligible to have your interest forgiven. You'll have to go through an accountant and you have to opt in, because there are people who are just not going to want to deal with it. There are people out there who are going to say, oh, well, this is too much effort for me to go do. I know I'm mad that everyone else got an interest forgiveness, but I mean, I can't take time out of my day to go and do this. But for everybody who didn't want to go and take some time, they'd have to go opt in. They'd actually have to sign up for it. One of the few good points of this is that you do have to opt in. This isn't just an automatic thing. And there are people who aren't going to qualify for it, but there's also going to be a lot of fraud that goes with it. Much like this. Let's Well, not like this. Let's watch this video of the houseplant chief talking about what's happening out there, and then they've got a CNN article that goes with it.
Many of you had to leave school because the financial strain was much too high. About a third of the borrowers have debt but no degree, and worst of both worlds, debt and no degree. The burden is especially heavy on Black and Hispanic borrowers, who on average have less family wealth to pay for it. They don't own their homes to borrow against to be able to pay for college. Many of you had to leave.
Let's listen to that one more time.
On average have less family wealth to pay for it. They don't own their homes to borrow against to be able to pay for college. Many of you had to leave school because Hispanic borrowers, who on average have less family wealth to pay for it. They don't own their homes to borrow against to be able to pay for college.
I'm telling you, man, the damn help out there. They don't have the resources. We don't let them have those kinds of resources, man. But they could sure bring me my tea out here in Delaware. Mr. President, it's 2022. We've had the civil rights movement. What do you mean, civil rights movement? You mean I can't call them the help anymore? He just can't stop doing it. Over and over again. This is a person who calls all Republicans racist right there. But unfortunately, the NAACP didn't pick up on that. Instead, picked up on, hey, give us more stuff. This is from CNN Business, and this is an op-ed, so the views expressed in this particular article are not necessarily the views of CNN Business, or its affiliates. They are also not necessarily the views of Contemporary, Turns the Pages Productions, or its affiliates. Opinion. NAACP CEO, Biden's reported plan to cancel student debt isn't enough. From Derek Johnson and Wisdom Cole for CNN Business Perspectives. Translation, gives me more stuff. Editor's note, Derek Johnson is president and CEO of the NAACP. William Cole is the NAACP's National Director of Youth and College. These opinions expressed in the commentary are their own. With the simple stroke of a pen, President Biden has the unique opportunity to unlock financial freedom for countless Black Americans in low-income communities. But according to CNN reporting, he might cancel just $10,000 of student loan debt per borrower. For those earning less than $125,000 a year, that would do little to help. Black Americans have been disproportionately devastated by student loan debt 4 years after graduating. They hold an average of almost $53,000 in debt, almost double the $28,000 average white Americans hold. They typically end up owing 6% more than they initially borrowed, while the white borrowers owe 10% less. Canceling just... How the hell does that work? Canceling just $10,000 of debt is like pouring a bucket of ice water on a forest fire. It hardly achieves anything, only making a mere dent in the problem. Biden must recognize and regard the student debt as a racial and economic justice issue. Because of course they do. Never mind the fact that he just got on the stage and says, if you're Black, you don't own your home. Never mind, well, I'm actually pretty sure that this article came out before that happened. But we don't see any articles talking about that, oddly enough. Canceling $50,000 or more per borrower would free millions of Americans, allowing them to become more active participants in the U.S. economy. It would also drastically reduce the racial wealth gap, and after generations of racial oppression, there it is, it would finally open the door for so many Americans to become homeowners and generate wealth not only for themselves, but for their children and grandchildren. There's one thing that's been pointed out, and I don't typically cite other creators, because I don't listen to a lot of other creators, except for the ones who I would like to join me in our new network, the Turns the Pages Productions Network. I typically cite them, but I don't typically cite people outside that network. But I do want to cite the Hexenhammer for just a moment, because he does bring up a good point off of this when he's talking about, these people think that if they cancel out all their student debt, they can go run out and buy a house right away. Look, if you're having trouble making your $150, $200 payment a month on a very low interest rate, what makes you think that any bank wants to go back out and look at you to make your $1,500, $2,000 housing payment? And second, on top of that, if you're just going to start dumping all these people in the housing market that's been artificially bloated by both low interest rates and BlackRock, what do you think that's going to do to the price of houses? You have not thought this through clearly. But they rarely do. Most of the time, when people like the writers of this article look at something, they're looking at what's happening in the next 15 to 20 minutes, not what's going to happen 10 years down the road. Some more Biden stuff here, because he was not really happy with what one of the reporters said on his way out the door. And he was about to do his back-turner Biden thing and walk out without questions, but we got to listen to this one here.
President, is this unfair to people who paid their student loans or chose not to take out loans?
Is it fair to people who, in fact, do not own multi-billion-dollar businesses if she wants these guys to give them all a tax break? Is that fair? What do you think?
What about people who paid their loans, though?
President, is this unfair to people who...
So apparently the only people who have paid their loans are the people who have multi-billion-dollar tax businesses, because that seems to be the equivalency that we're coming with here. Number two, and this is one, and I know that the bot accounts, the accounts over on Twitter, the safe accounts, as you will, they all try to jump onto this and trying to make this into an actual thing. How can you sit here? How can you sit here honestly with a clear conscience and say you don't want to give away $300 billion to every borrower out there, when you had no problem last year giving $1.7 trillion in unfunded tax break to all of Trump's rich buddies? And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, well, there's a really, really big difference between letting a productive member of society keep more of their own money and taking from the poor and giving to the poorer, like you seem to do. And again, we keep hearing, nobody over $400,000. That is a load of crap. And he knows it, and you know it, and I know it. But they'll still feed that line out to their sympathetic base who is about to have their taxes increased. From the Daily Wire, Biden mocks reporter who asks if it's unfair to cancel student loan debt. From Daily Wire News, President Brandon mocked a reporter on Wednesday who asked if it was unfair to cancel student loans for some people while others have had to pay theirs back. White House officials have been weighing the move for months before officially landing at the $10,000 figure. Biden also decided to extend the pause on federal student loan payments through January 2023, while borrowers with undergraduate loans can cap repayment at 5% of their monthly income. Is it unfair to people who paid their student loans or chose not to take out loans? A reporter asked Biden. Is it fair to people who, in fact, do not own multi-billion-dollar businesses to see one of these guys give them all the tax breaks? Is that fair? Biden snapped back. What do you think? By the way, I want to remind you that I am poor as hell, and I got a tax break off this tax break that's supposed to only go to the multi-billionaires. And yes, my taxes are going up this year. Another reporter asked Biden, "What about people who paid their loans, though, struggle to pay their loans, and now others don't have to?" Biden refused to answer the question and walked out of the room. Nixing $10,000 of debt per borrower would cost $298 billion in 2022 and a total of $329 billion by 2031 if the policy is renewed each year, according to a nonpartisan analysis from the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School. Less than 32% of the funding would benefit Americans in the two lowest income quintiles, while 42% would benefit those earning more than $82,400 per year. So, I want to talk about this and the numbers for just a moment. We're getting to that point, and I want to talk a bit about something that nobody else I've heard so far has talked about. There are two reasons for the $10,000 number. Now, we say the NAACP wants more Gibbs, and I'm sure that if you scratch a little bit on the surface there, you'll find out that not only do they want the Gibbs, but they don't want the Gibbs to go to white people. They only want black people to have $50,000 in student loan debt forgiveness. Screw everybody else. In fact, instead of forgiving student loan debt for everybody, just transfer the student loan debt from the black students onto the white students. I bet you if you scratch a little bit deeper into the surface, you'll find that sentiment for them. It's reparations, after all. But realistically, $10,000 per borrower. What does that do? That gives people a little bit of a taste of possibly a lower payment, even though they haven't had to make a payment in 2 years, possibly a better situation for them, and possibly allowing them to participate more in the economy. But it leaves the problem unfixed, and that's the important part. And that's part of the reason that I knew that there wasn't going to be a blanket student loan cancellation, because they can't fix things. Because they can't go back and run on them. This is a big thing in government, and neoconservative Republicans do it, and liberal Democrats do it, and progressives especially do it. As far as MAGA Republicans, I'm going to tell you there is not enough data to come out and say whether or not they're going to do it. I know the populism is going to devolve into an authoritarian situation, because all government structures do. The liberals, the progressives, the neoconservatives, they've all done it before. We've seen this story over and over again. Libertarians have devolved into an authoritarian structure once they started to get a little bit of power. But what we have seen historically from this is the government will come out and promise that they're going to go fix a problem. And every once in a while, every few cycles, they actually might come out and throw you a couple breadcrumbs for the problem. They won't fix the problem, but they'll give you a little bit of relief off the problem, because they need something to go back and run on every year, every other year. Oh, vote for me, and I'll cancel your student debt. Oh, well, I got blocked by the evil other person. So vote for me again, and I'll cancel your student debt. We did the same thing with close the border and bring jobs back to the U.S. on the neoconservative side. Was the border closed? No. And the Donald actually made a legitimate attempt to go and make that happen. He got blocked every which way. Actually blocked every which way. And it was the same thing with the Roe thing. At numerous occasions in the last 53 years, a law could have come back out through the House and Senate that said, hey, you know what? We know that we might not have the Supreme Court forever. So let's go make a law. Let's make a law, let's put this in the books so that they can't go back out if they do ever manage to wrest control of the Supreme Court and turn around and turn this against us. And they didn't. But they promised you that they would every year. Like, vote for us and we'll make sure that the Supreme Court never goes the other way. And also, by the way, we'll make sure that this is made into law so you don't have to worry about the Supreme Court anymore. And they didn't do it. They promised it every other year, but they didn't do it. Oh, this person, if you elect this person, he's going to take away your right to this, your right to that. It's your right, after all. and it was never a right either, but, you know, it goes down. And it's the same thing with this. $10,000 still leaves the vast majority of borrowers out there struggling. Not for me. If I were to go in and sell my soul and get in on this program, for the ones that are covered under this, the federal ones for the state school, I'd be free and clear. I'd be in the clear, no more. Never have to worry about it again, never have to think about it again. The private ones, different story. So the next Democrat, Biden or otherwise, can go run on, hey, we're gonna fix the problem this time. We couldn't fix the problem last time, we're gonna fix the problem this time. And they have another 10 cycles they can run on this promise, while still being able to say they did something on paper. Here is a how to qualify for this from CNN, how to qualify for Biden's new student loan forgiveness plan from Shandelis Duster. The tagline for this video says Biden forgave 10,000 student debt. People flooded TikTok with messages about it. I kind of want to hate watch this. I really do. Do you want to hate watch this with me? I kind of want to hate watch this.
They said it couldn't be done.
Because the big drug companies have billions of dollars and an army of lobbyists.
Oh, we're going to have a commercial first. Oh, goodness. No, we're not going to advertise for AARP. Why is my ad blocker not working, by the way? I guess we'll have to fix that after this. Usually we don't have to see this crap.
Saying that they don't think the 10K is enough, and I agree. But am I going to take the 10K? Do I even have to answer that question?
$10,000 of student loans canceled. It's a start. It's not great, but it's a start, and I will take it, even though it helps me like not at all.
Wow, I'm so proud of you.
$20K in student loan forgiveness for Pell Grant recipients? Okay, come on, Joe. I know a lot of us wanted more, but I'm gonna take what I can get at this point because that student debt is looking hefty. Thank you so much, Joe. We did it, Joe.
So respectfully, Uncle Joe, because I do love you.
Speaking of things that are looking hefty.
But you have not needed my money in 2 years. More than 2 years. So, why do I have to give you anything? Why?
No, this feels discouraging because for the vast majority of people, that is not enough. But what this is telling us is two things. Number one, Biden does have the power to cancel all federal student loan debt. He's just choosing not to.
That's still in question, by the way.
10K is an arbitrary number. It could be 65,000. It could be 80,000. It needs to be all of it. The second thing this is teaching us is that putting pressure on the Biden administration is having an impact.
I shed a tear when I saw this earlier. This is like iconic and truly historic. Like, when was the last time that the government actually like did something other than the absolute bare minimum for like people like us?
So I'm speaking to you as someone who has had student debt and paid it off and went back to school within the last 5 years and currently has student debt. So make sure you note that when I'm saying this. I took the damn note out. I took the damn loan. It's my responsibility to pay it back, not yours.
I'm gonna say thank you because we wasn't getting nothing before anyway.
Of dollars and an
Yeah, I gotta figure out what's going on with my ad blocker and why that's not popping that out of there, because we can't have that on a professional show. I don't know where we're finding a professional show, but So that's what they had to say about that. From CNN, President Biden on Wednesday announced his plan to address student loan debt, which includes debt forgiveness for certain borrowers and extending the pandemic-related payment pause. The Biden admin has already canceled nearly $32 billion of the $1.6 trillion in outstanding federal student debt by expanding existing forgiveness programs for public sector workers, disabled borrowers, and students who were defrauded by for-profit colleges. Let's see. Here are the details CNN has learned of Biden's new plan. Who qualifies? The plan applies to federal student loan borrowers. So if you are going through a second company like Navient, Sallie Mae, you're screwed. Just so you know. How much forgiveness will they get? The amount of debt canceled depends on whether the borrower received Pell Grants to attend college. A federal Pell Grant is only given to undergraduate students who display exceptional financial need and have not earned a bachelor's, graduate, or professional degree. It does not have to be repaid except under certain circumstances, according to the Department of Education's Federal Student Aid Office, per data cited by the White House. Pell Grants currently only cover a third of the cost of a four-year public college degree, which has led to increased borrowing. Individual borrowers who make less than $125,000 a year and married couples or heads of household who make less than $250,000 yearly will have up to $10,000 of their federal student loan debt forgiven if they did not receive a Pell Grant as an undergraduate student, per the FSA website. Individual borrowers who make less than $125,000 yearly and married couples or heads of household who make less than $250,000 yearly but did not receive Pell Grant as an undergraduate student will have up to did not up to $20,000 of their student loan debt forgiven. What steps do eligible borrowers have to take? Nearly 8 million borrowers may have to receive debt forgiveness automatically may be able to receive it automatically because the Department of Education already has their income information, FSA says. The Biden admin will launch an application in the coming weeks to borrowers to provide their income information if borrowers are unsure if the department has their income information already, FSA says. The application will be available before the federal student loan repayment pause ends on December 31st, where it will get continued again, by the way. Borrowers can sign up for updates on when the application is open at the Department of Education subscription page. So, I may have been incorrect in that, and there is a possibility because the Department of Education probably does have my income information, or I will likely just have it gone. Done, gone. Which is lame. And right before I went live, I found this. In fact, I commented on it. You'll already see my name at the bottom. Holly OX Coburn is a great follow over on Twitter if you're not. Although with 2,506 followers, you probably already are. It's not for the government to decide who is worthy of a clean slate. That's the job of private charity. There's zero reason proponents of debt cancellation can't start a charity to provide this. There are a few reasons. We can't say them on YouTube because we'll probably not have a YouTube anymore, and I'm actually on both channels right now, so if I get the hit, it'll be on both of them. Remember, the government does nothing well, and this will be another program of fraud. And which I replied and said, oh, it'll be rife with it even. Holly returns back and says, for sure, it will be. And by the way, if you're not following at Holly OX Coburn and you're on Twitter, what's wrong with you? Go do that. Stop the stream and go follow Holly. From the Daily Wire. Top Democrat economist blasts Biden's student loan bailout, pours gasoline on the inflationary fire. Yes. From Ryan Saavedra. Top economists who work for the former president, Barack Obama, slammed President Biden for his plan to bail out a large number of Americans from having to pay back a substantial portion of their student loans or Pell Grants. Biden announced his plan on Wednesday to make U.S. taxpayers pay off thousands of dollars in student loans and Pell Grant recipients for those making less than $125,000 a year. The nixing of $10,000 of debt per borrower would cost $298 billion in 2022 and a total of $329 billion in 2031 if the policy is renewed each year, according to a nonpartisan analysis from the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School. Less than 32% of the funding would benefit Americans in the two lowest income quintiles, while 42% would benefit those earning more than $82,400 per year. Jason Furman, President Barack Obama's chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors, responded to the plan by writing on social media this. The White House fact sheet has sympathetic examples about a construction worker making $38,000 a year and a married nurse making $77,000 a year. But then why design a policy that would provide up to $40,000 to a married couple making $249,000? Why include law and business school students? It's a vote by the way, those examples also contradict the baseline some have concocted to claim that this won't raise inflation. The claim that it won't raise inflation is based on the construction worker going from permanently paying zero interest to paying $31 a month at an annualized cost of $372. Lawrence Summers, student loan debt relief is spending that raises demand and increases inflation. It consumes resources that could be better used helping those who did not, for whatever reason, have the chance to attend college. It will also tend to be inflationary by raising tuitions and the cost of goods because, again, the idea is to get more of these people out there saying, I have more money! And going out and buying the TV, the game console, the new phone, the new car, or a house. The worst idea would be a continuation of the current moratorium that benefits, among others, highly paid surgeons, lawyers, and investment bankers. What else do we have here? Who's paying for this? Token Diversity Hire has absolutely no answer for who will pay for Biden's student loan bailout. Let's listen.
For that, and that again, here's what we have done. Here's
But you're
what
talking
here's
a lot about how much it might cost, it might not cost. Who is paying for this?
what we are saying is the work that this administration has done, the work that the Democrats in Congress has done, is actually there, and you see that the 1.7 trillion deficit deduction that you see is going to benefit us in being able to do something for the middle class, to do something for the middle class.
But when you
This
forgive-
is about doing something for people who make less than $125,000. $1.7 trillion. That's what we've been able to do.
But when you forgive debt, you're not just disappearing debt. So
But-
who is paying for this?
And then I'll give you the second part. We lifted the pause, right? We're going to lift the pause at the end of this year, which is going to matter, right? Which is going to offset a lot of what we're doing as well. When you think about the $4 billion that's going to go back into as revenue back into this process of folks paying right their college tuition, that matters as well. So we are doing this in a smart way. We're doing this in a way that's going to be effective. We're doing in this a way that keeps to the president's promise on giving people who need some breathing room, who need some breathing room. I just laid out for you. No, Peter, I just laid out for you how we're seeing this process and why this matters. Again, I just laid out because of the work that we have done.
Stop asking who's going to pay for it, because just everybody out there is going to get some breathing room. Don't worry about what's happening over here. From CNBC, here's what President Biden's student loan forgiveness means for your taxes. From Katie Dorr and Anna Nova. If you are poised to benefit from Joe Biden's up to $20,000 in student loan forgiveness, you may be wondering if the erased debt will trigger a tax surprise come April, which, by the way, it probably still will. They're telling you that it won't, but it probably still will. The short answer is it won't, at least on your federal tax return. Biden announced on Wednesday that he will forgive $10,000 in federal student debt for most borrowers, limited to borrowers making less than $125,000 a year, or $250,000 for married couples filing together or heads of household. He will also cancel up to $20,000 for Pell Grant recipients. Tax-free forgiveness on up to $20,000 may offer significant savings depending on your income, said certified financial planner Ethan Miller. It's going to be fine. For example, let's say you're making $40,000 a year in the 12% federal tax bracket, you'll receive $20,000 in tax-free student loan forgiveness. You'll avoid $2,400 in federal taxes. To be clear, student loan forgiveness won't trigger a federal tax bill. The American Rescue Plan of 2021 made student loan forgiveness tax-free through 2025, which means in 2026 rather, surprise! And the law covers Biden's forgiveness too, according to a fact sheet from the White House. Generally, the IRS sees federal student loan forgiveness as taxable earnings. However, some exceptions are tax-free, such as the relief that comes with public service loan forgiveness, designed for government and nonprofit workers after 10 years of payments. It's patchwork because all these programs were created separately at different times, Miller said. Taxable student loan forgiveness often creates significant burden, especially for lower-income borrowers with large balances, Miller said. Yes. Now, and part of the reason that I was concerned about this, and they're telling me that this is not something to concern yourself with, but part of the reason I've been concerned about this, I cited my ex-girlfriend, and that she did have a credit card discharge while we were together, and got hammered in taxes over it. Like, absolutely beat to crap in taxes over it. To a ridiculous amount. Then, like, her credit card debt wasn't really that high on the one that got discharged. I couldn't believe how much they hammered her in taxes for that. However, pay attention, you may owe state taxes on forgiven debt too. While Biden's student loan forgiveness won't trigger higher federal taxes, you may still be on the hook for state levies, said higher education expert Mark Kantrowitz. Check your local laws. I don't know if I will be on the hook for it here in Wisconsin, if I were to take it, or if they were to foist it on me, one of the two. If you're unsure, contact a local tax professional for an estimate before filing your state tax return. In fact, I have one of those on speed dial, so... Here's how they're getting to this, by the way. Biden is using a law intended for 9/11 heroes to legally cancel student debt. It's pretty convoluted. From Tim Meads. President Biden's admin has developed a convoluted way to legally cancel student debt that may, thanks to a law intended for 9/11 heroes. But it also undermines his boast touting the strongest American economy ever. While folks like Speaker Nancy Pelosi have argued that the president has no legal authority to wipe out said debts, Biden apparently thinks he found a way under a law passed after 9/11 which was intended to assist first responders and other Americans impacted during national emergencies. According to a legal memo sent to Secretary of Education Miguel Cardona on Tuesday, the Biden admin's legal counsel claims that the Higher Education Relief Opportunities for Students Act, or HEROES Act, of 2003 grants the Secretary authority that could be used to effectuate a program of targeted loan cancellation directed at addressing financial harms of the pinko-pox pandemic. The memo claimed the HEROES Act, first enacted in the wake of the September 11th attacks, provides the Secretary broad authority to grant relief from student loan requirements during specific periods, a war, other military operation, or national emergency such as the present pinko-pox pandemic, and for specific purposes, including to address the financial harms of such a war, other military operation, or emergency. The Biden admin also pointed out that Bush, Obama, and Trump admins used the HEROES Act to provide economic relief to borrowers in connection with a war, other military operation, or national emergency that included the ongoing moratorium on student loan payment and interest, which began during the pandemic under President Trump. In 2020, DeVos used the HEROES Act to place a hold on student loan interest and payments. However, prior to leaving office, her legal counsel decided in a memo that the Education Department was limited in its authority as it related to the pandemic and student debt, something the Biden admin disagrees with. So, that's how they're doing it. And I hope you're prepared for your surprise tax bill. No, I think the emergency is the existence of the federal government. What else do we have? Young Americans for Freedom tweets out, "That's a lot of money to ask the American people to spend on paying back other people's loans." According to the National Taxpayers Union Foundation, Biden's plan to cancel student debt will cost an average of $2,085 per taxpayer. Food for thought. 1/100th the cost of 2 Gulf Wars per taxpayer, yet the YAF wants to do a 3rd Gulf War. Could we get a citation of that, please? I'm going to ask him that. Ask? That's funny. The government always looks more like a tell. Elizabeth Warren weighing in on this. "I've saved all my money. My daughter doesn't have any student loans. Am I going to get my money back?" Elizabeth Warren, "Of course not. I worked a double shift. You're laughing at me. We did the right thing and we got screwed." That's the government for you. Let's listen.
I was hoping the teachers would. Yeah. I'm on here and I'm having hard time. Yep.
I just want to ask one question. My daughter's getting out of school. I've saved all my money. She doesn't have any student loans. Am I going to get my money back? Of course not. So you're going to pay for people who didn't save any money, and those of us that did the right thing get screwed.
No, it's not anybody got screwed. When we
Of
started,
course we did. My buddy had fun, bought a car, went on vacations. I saved my money. He made more than I did. But I worked a double shift, worked extra. My daughter's worksheet is 10. So you're laughing. Yeah, that's exactly what you're doing. We did the right thing, and we get screwed.
I appreciate
That's all right.
All right, go right ahead.
It's not the fact that she said no, because you knew that it was going to say no. You knew that no was going to be the answer. It was the brazenness of her answer that just rubbed me the wrong way. Again, this guy knew before he walked up there that the answer was going to be no to this. But the brazenness. Let's listen to that one more time.
I was hoping the teachers would. Yeah. I'm on here and I'm having hard time. Yep.
I just want to ask one question. My daughter's getting out of school. I've saved all my money. She doesn't have any student loans. Am I going to get my money back? Of course not. So you're going to pay for people who didn't save any money, and those of us that did the right thing get screwed. I've saved all my money. She doesn't have any student loans. Am I going to get my money back? Of course not. I've saved all my money. She doesn't have any student loans. Am I going to get my money back? Of course not.
God bless you for doing the right thing. Am I going to get my money back? Of course not. That is brazen. Let's see. From Yahoo Finance. Biden just forgave $10,000 in student loan debt. Elizabeth Warren calls it one of the biggest acts of consumer debt relief in American history, while Mitch McConnell calls it socialism. From Colin Lodwick. For much of this year, millions of people across the country have held their breath, hoping President Biden would keep his campaign promise and waive some or even all of their student debt. On Wednesday, Biden finally announced his plan. His admin will forgive $10,000 for borrowers making under $125,000. We know that. Here's what the most prominent voices in politics, economics, and more are saying about today's historic announcement. Elizabeth Warren. Make no mistake, This is one of the biggest acts of consumer debt relief in American history and will directly help hardworking people who borrowed money to go to school because they didn't come from a family that could write a big check. Corey Bush says, gives me that. Ted Cruz, insane and illegal. We have the highest inflation in 40 years, highest gas prices ever, but Biden wants to spend even more at the expense of hardworking Americans. Mitch McConnell. In a statement posted on Twitter, he called the program socialism. Oh, I thought they were going to give me the tweet. This policy is astonishingly unfair. Bernie Sanders has been an advocate, argued for much more than $10,000 to be forgiven. Yesterday, Sanders called out a student loan refinancing company on Twitter for giving its CEO a 92% raise in 2021, resulting in a total of $103 million in compensation. You know what President Biden can do? Cancel all student debt. So, that's what they have to say with that. Education Secretary says the quiet part out loud. People who paid their student debt get nothing. Well, that's also what Elizabeth Warren said. Miguel Cardona conceded Wednesday that borrowers who repaid their student loans would get no benefit from Biden's planned cancellation of $10,000 in debt. Cardona spoke briefly with Peter Doocy, who asked him to weigh in on those who had worked to repay their debts. Yeah, Peter Doocy is really good at getting these people to say the quiet part out loud, isn't he? Let's listen.
But just the final one on this.
Sure.
The people that already paid their student loans,
Right.
they don't get anything out of this deal.
Right.
That's right. Okay.
I wish I could have seen more of that clip. But I mean, half this clip is the Newsbusters logo coming off of there. This is the same clip?
Speaker Pelosi said
a
last
longer
year
one.
she thought that this was something a president could not do. It would require an act of Congress. So, is this legal?
Yeah, look, the HEROES Act, page 637 to be exact, provides access, gives me the authority to provide a waiver to ensure that Americans are not worse off after an emergency, a national emergency, which the pandemic was.
So, that's why there's... So yeah, if you did the right thing, go screw yourself. So says the government. From The Blaze, Nancy Pelosi completely caves on student debt forgiveness. Suddenly claims Biden has the authority to carry out the plan. Oh, he's carrying out the plan. House Speaker Pelosi has caved to partisan politics on the issue of sweeping to student loan cancellation. Yeah, you think we'll get that by the end of the year, Ron? That's a good point. After President Biden announced Wednesday his plan for widespread student loan forgiveness, Pelosi praised Biden for taking bold action that will help Americans. Biden's bold action is a strong step in Democrats' fight to expand the access to higher education by delivering historic targeted student debt relief to millions of borrowers who are more working families will be able to meet their kitchen table needs as they recover from the pandemic. But what did Pelosi state before? Last year, Pelosi stated unequivocally that Biden lacks the authority to unilaterally forgive student loan debt because the power rests in Congress, which is entirely possible it may. People think the president has the power for debt forgiveness. He does not. He can postpone, he can delay, but he does not have that power. This has to be an act of Congress.
People think that the President of the United States has the power for debt forgiveness. He does not. He can postpone, he can delay, but he does not have that power. That has to be an act of Congress. And I don't even like to call it forgiveness because that implies a transgression. It's not to be forgiven. Just freeing people from those obligations. So the question of who gets forgiven, to use the term of art that is out there, is a debate. Do we use whatever money there is for the broadest base of support of those with more people with even less debt or fewer people with more debt? That's a policy discussion. But the difference between the president can't do it. So that's not even a discussion. Not everybody realizes that the president can only postpone, delay, but not forgive.
And they go on to talk about the authority that he has for that. Speaking of which, Defiant L's. Pelosi says, on CNBC, Pelosi says Biden doesn't have the power to cancel student debt. The president can't do it. 11:05 a.m., 7/29/2021. 8/24/22. President's bold action is a strong step in Democrats' fight to expand access to higher education. Higher indoctrination. Jordan Kittle says insider trading must be rough. Matt Kay says they know it's illegal. It's part of the long game. Now they can blame everything on Trump, Republicans, and the Supreme Court when it gets struck down. The only branch of government that could do this is Congress, and even then it's not clear if it's a legal program. Even WAPO got into this, though, from the Daily Wire. WAPO editorial board, and I think this is the last one. Yes, this is the last one. WAPO editorial board slams Biden for inflationary, regressive, ill-conceived student loan cancellation. From Ryan Saavedra. The Washington Post editorial board slammed President Biden Wednesday afternoon for his plan to make U.S. taxpayers pay off thousands of dollars in student loans of Pell Grant recipients for those making less than $125,000 a year. Let's read an opinion. And from the Washington Post. Biden's student loan announcement is regressive, expensive mistake. From the editorial board, which no author is given. Nobody wants to put their name to this, oddly enough, at the Washington Post. Under progressive pressure to force grandiose policy changes, President Biden has generally embraced sensible reforms over flashy gimmicks. When? You've been watching the same Ad Men that I have, because that's not quite true. But his Wednesday student loan announcement did just the opposite. After weeks of anticipation, Mr. Biden announced that he will extend the pause on student loan payments. He'll also forgive up to $10,000 and $20,000. We know that. Both measures are ill-conceived and misdirected. The loan pause, which President Trump instituted in March of 2020, was an emergency measure at the time when people were struggling to find jobs or had to remain home due to the pandemic. Thankfully, the situation is very different today. The unemployment rate for people with bachelor's degrees is and higher is just 2%. It's hard to make the case that college graduates are still facing an unprecedented crisis. The loan forgiveness decision is even worse. Widely canceling student loan debt is regressive. It takes money from the broader tax base, mostly made up of workers who didn't go to college, to subsidize the education debt of the people with valuable degrees. Though Mr. Biden's plan includes an income cap, the threshold does not reflect need or earnings potential, meaning white-collar professionals with higher future salaries stand to benefit. Student loans, moreover, are a poor proxy for household income. An analysis by policy researcher Jason D. Delisle found that in 2016, students from high-income and low-income families were just as likely to take on debt for their first year in undergraduate program, and students from high-income families borrowed the largest amounts. And this is coming from the Washington Post, by the way. This is not coming from Breitbart or National Review or the Daily Stormer. This is from super far left. Tax everything out of the rich, take everything from everybody, and redistribute it evenly. Washington Post. And even they're looking at this and saying, dude, what the hell? So that's what we have off of this, and this has taken almost the entirety of the program for the day. What do we spend? Like 10 minutes on finance, which means that we have 1 hour and 5 minutes just into student loans. And we still have a bunch of other stuff to go over here, plus things I like and things that I hate. Things that I hate. There's 2 of them. So let's do more Biden stuff here from Politico. Let me make sure that this is... I want to make sure that one was actually going to let us read it here. Biden issues new rule to protect program for young immigrants. From Sabrina Rodriguez. The Biden admin on Wednesday released a final rule to fortify the Obama-era Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, a move that comes as the immigration program remains in legal limbo. The regulation, which takes effect on October 31st, is meant to protect DACA by codifying the program and replacing the 2012 memo that first created it. The Obama-era program currently offers work permits and protection from deportation for more than 600,000 undocumented immigrants. Today, we're fulfilling our commitment to preserve and strengthen DACA by finalizing a rule that will reinforce protections, like work authorization that allow dreamers to live more freely and invest in their communities more fully, President Biden said in a statement, referring to young people who were brought to the U.S. and have remained without legal status, holding them in legal limbo so they can still use them as a club the next time a Republican decides he wants to go and run for office. Just so you know, that's what they're doing with this. Biden went on to directly call on Republicans on Capitol Hill to move for a legislative solution. I will do everything within my power to protect dreamers, but congressional Republicans should stop blocking a bill that provides a pathway to citizenship for dreamers, Biden said. It's not only the right thing to do, it's also the smart thing to do for our economy and our communities. Congress has long been unable to reach any kind of immigration deal that would garner enough bipartisan support to pass the Senate. Last year, the parliamentarian rejected multiple efforts by Democrats to include immigration changes in their party-line social spending bill, and Republican leaders have expressed little interest in Democrats' attempts at overhauling immigration policy. Dick Durbin, who has long pushed for a pathway to citizenship for dreamers, was quick to applaud the Department of Homeland Security's issuing the rule. He noted that provides some stability to DACA recipients and makes it more difficult for a future admin to rescind DACA, which is a lawful exercise of prosecutorial discretion. However, this rule cannot provide permanent legal status or fully protect DACA recipients from relentless Republican legal challenges to the program. Only Congress can protect them. And this is, again, I've spent way too much time on this channel telling you how disgusting this DACA program is. It is probably one of the more disgusting programs out there, because it keeps people in a state of limbo where they don't know day to day where they're going to be legally. Even deporting them all to a country where they don't speak the language and they haven't been since they were 1 or 2 years old would be more humane than letting them sit here and have to wonder every time there's an election, oh, am I going to get deported next year? I'm going to skip this one because it's the same thing. Let's talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene. Police are investigating an apparent swatting incident at Marjorie Taylor Greene's Georgia home. From Rebecca Cohen and Warren Rojas. Police are investigating an apparent swatting attempt at Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene's Georgia home. Police in Rome said in a statement that they received a 911 call at 1:30 a.m. about a subject being shot multiple times at an address in the city. Officers responded to the scene and realized that they were at Green's home. Police said she told police there was no evidence of shots fired in the area and that everything was fine. Rome police determined the call was fake in an attempt at swatting, a type of harassment in which someone calls law enforcement with false information saying there's a threat at a person's address, so that armed police show up at their home. A second 911 call followed, this time from the suspect, who police said was using a computer-generated voice saying that they were upset about Mrs. Green's political view on transgender youth rights. Police said the department is now investigating the incident and the caller. Green, one of the embattled former President Trump's most ardent defenders, has made combating transgender rights a cornerstone of her first term in Congress. You're going to get editorializing when you come from Business Insider. On August 19th, she introduced a bill seeking to criminalize gender-affirming health care, characterizing any associated medical procedures sought by transgender youth as child abuse. Now, see, when they write that, they miss the most important part of the bill. A bill seeking to criminalize gender-affirming health care in minors who are being on set with a demand that they become little special, more snowflakey than anybody else. In July, Green spread a baseless rumor blaming a nationwide tampon shortage on the transgender community. So much editorialization off of this. It was probably an insider reporter that called in the swatting. From Fox 5 Atlanta, Marjorie Taylor Greene was victim of swatting at Rome residence. Police confirm. Police said officers responded to her home around 1 a.m. after someone reported someone being shot multiple times, but determined the call was a prank when they arrived. It's not clear how many officers responded. Swatting is the act of making a hoax call to 911 to try to draw responses to law enforcement. Suspects can use technology to make it appear the emergency call is coming from the victim's phone. In the situations, it can be deadly. Let's see. Green put an anti-transgender rights placard outside her Washington, D.C. office across from the transgender flag raised by her neighbor, Illinois Rep. Marie Newman. The sign said there are two genders, male and female, and trust the science. And I mean, the swatting thing, that in and of itself is dangerous. And there's a reason that I always keep the window across from me open so I can see if somebody comes back to try to do that to me while I'm on the air. I mean, I'm pretty low profile right now, but at some point it's probably going to happen. I'm going to say the wrong thing and something's going to happen off of that. I have understandings with the local police. I've talked to them. They know what the situation is. I've discussed it with them. But the point is, I mean, the point's not just to harass. And I love how Insider and Fox 5 are trying to tell you, no, this is just about harassing the person, getting the police out there. No, what they're trying to do is get dozens of heavily armed police on edge, thinking that they're going to go into a shooting situation up in full tactical gear who are going to shoot first and ask questions later. Make no mistake, the person who's making the call to do the SWAT wants the victim to die. And this started when Marjorie Taylor Greene was on Timcast, too, by the way. Grab one from Newsweek here. Marjorie Taylor Greene ironically blasts trans hate forum after swatting. From Ayla Slisko. In an astounding twist of irony, Republican Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia has called for a controversial transgender hate forum to be taken offline after it was linked to her being targeted in a swatting incident. Greene said that she was swatted, a term usually referring to a harsh confrontation with law enforcement due to filing of false reports to police at her home in Georgia around 1 a.m. Wednesday. A suspect who claimed responsibility for the incident told local police they intended to swat Greene because they were upset with her opposition to transgender youth's rights, according to a police report obtained by the Daily Dot. Green, who has reportedly spoken out against transgender people and gender-affirming medical treatment, suggests the incident was political terrorism by supporters of transgender rights. However, the suspect also told police that they were a member of the website KiwiFarms.net, a forum best known for targeting the transgender community and other minorities with harassment and cyberstalking. While Green acknowledged the police were still investigating whether the alleged Kiwi Farms user really was a person who did this, she said during a Newsmax interview on Wednesday that it was absurd that the website was allowed to exist and called for the government to force the forum offline. And it looks like we have the full story off of this, and we'll be watching a clip of Newsmax.
Some breaking news today. Republican firebrand Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene has been the subject of a shocking political attack late last night at her Georgia home. Greene was swatted. She tweeted this: "Last night I was swatted just after 1 a.m. I can't express enough gratitude to my local law enforcement here in Rome, Floyd County." More details to come.
Yeah, and now swatting, commonly defined as the action or practice of making a prank call to emergency services in an attempt to bring about the dispatch of a large number of armed police officers to a particular address. Now, according to the Rome Police Department report, officers responded to a 911 call at 1:03 a.m., which initially led them to believe that a man had been shot multiple times in a bathtub at Greene's home. But when officers arrived, of course, there wasn't an incident like that at all.
Yeah, and after officers cleared the scene, the department received a call from the actual suspect who claimed responsibility for the false shooting call and explained their motives, reportedly upset over Greene's stance on trans rights. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene is now here with us to explain exactly what happened last night. Congresswoman, welcome. The lead-in here has to be about last night, ... We kind of set up the story of what happened, but you experienced it, literally a likely rude awakening at 1 a.m. Tell us about it.
Yeah, very serious and scary awakening. I have to tell you that. And I'm so thankful to the police here in Rome. They were incredible. They were professional. They did their jobs very well. So I was awakened by hearing the doorbell and knocks at the door and hearing people outside my bedroom windows. I saw a few lights outside, but they weren't police lights, just a few lights. And I was very concerned, not knowing who was outside my home. Jumped out of the bed, got dressed, and I went to pick up my gun simply because I was really afraid of who might be at the door. Obviously in the middle of the night, not expecting anyone. But I just had a gut feeling to leave the gun where it is and not carry it with me. And that's not normal for me. I normally would take it with me to the door at all times, especially in that kind of situation. But I'm very, very glad I did not carry my gun to the front door, because when I came around into the foyer where I've got windows, I saw many police outside on my front porch, and it was a serious situation. Opened the door and spoke with them, and they were asking me if everything was okay and told me what the 911 call was all about. I was shocked, absolutely shocked. And of course, assured them, no, nothing like that has happened here. Invited them into my house, asked them to look around because I was really scared, and realized, and they also confirmed that, yes, it sounds like you've been swatted. And indeed, that is what happened. Now, here's the very terrifying truth of it. This is how they get people killed. So this person that made this phone call intentionally wanted me to be killed by police officers because they are based, it's like political terrorism. They hate my views and they hate the legislation that I introduced last week, the Protect Children's Innocence Act. And this bill would make it a felony, a Class C felony by federal law, to perform gender-affirming care on children under the age of 18. And this is a very important piece of legislation because of the mass movement on the left to perform these.
So, and she goes into what it was that she thinks was that sparked this, which I don't think that she's wrong about that. And I do find it interesting, too, where she runs out and says, I heard somebody out there banging on the door, and I went to go grab a gun, and I said, nope, I ain't going to do it out there this time. Which, I mean, I think about that, and the few occasions where somebody has been at the door at 1 o'clock in the morning here, I don't automatically go grab one of the numerous firearms around this small apartment. But I'm also not a 5'3", 125-pound woman. So I thought of that. That triggered in my mind right away as we were going with this. Here's one for you from ABC News. IRS is conducting a comprehensive review of existing safety and security measures amid threats to the employees. From Luke Barr. Guess what? You've called for the death of an IRS agent. You're about to become labeled a domestic terrorist. The IRS says it's conducting a comprehensive review of its security systems amid recent threats against IRS employees. Some of the rhetoric comes after many Republican lawmakers and media figures claimed, without evidence, that the $78 billion being sent to the IRS over 10 years as part of the Inflation Production Act is so more agents can be hired to audit the middle class. That's what it's there for. This includes conducting risk assessments based on data-driven decisions, given the current environment, and monitoring perimeter security, designations of restricted areas, exterior lighting, security around entrances to our facilities, and other various protections, IRS Commissioner Charles Rettig wrote to employees obtained by ABC News. We also monitor threat intelligence and have increased engagement with TIGTA, Department of Homeland Security, and law enforcement officials, so we're ready to implement additional countermeasures and notifications to employees if circumstances warrant, Rettig wrote. Which means we're going to go give them all a bunch more guns and a bunch more ammo. The commissioner says, this is personal. I'll continue to make every effort to dispel any lingering misperceptions about our work, and I will continue to advocate for your safety in every venue where I have an audience, he says. You go above and beyond every single day, taking money from those evil, evil taxpayers, so we can go out and give it to our political donors. And I'm honored to work with you. Dude, your business is stealing. Your business is literally theft. Here's one from The Blaze. Tray of mail-in ballots suddenly discovered in post office nearly 2 years after the election. I wonder what the votes were on those. From Chris Enlow. Nearly 2 years after the 2020 election, some voters in Baltimore just received their mail-in ballots. Honk! Baltimore voter Nick Frisone contacted WMAR-TV after he received his 2020 mail-in ballot on August 6, 2022, nearly 2 years after he was notified that his ballot would be delivered. Frisone told WMAR he knew his ballot had gone missing. That's because in late September of 2020 he received an email from the post office informing him that his ballot would soon be delivered, but it never showed up, and he eventually obtained a replacement. It just never came, so I had to call the Board of Elections, then I had to go in person and get a replacement, Frisone said. Honk! Tom Ouellette, the spokesperson for the USPS, explained in a statement that the USPS found an innocuous tray of undelivered mail-in ballots from the 2020 election earlier this month, hence Frisone finally receiving his missing ballot. Honk! According to Ouellette, more than 24 undelivered ballots were discovered in the tray. Regarding ballots seen in photographs from a customer's email, the Postal Service discovered a tray of undelivered mail in Baltimore facility on Friday, August 5th, Ouellette told WMAR. The honking will continue until morale improves. Let's talk Twitter. Twitter is vulnerable to Russian and Chinese influence, whistleblower says, from Brian Fung. Twitter is exceptionally vulnerable to exploitation by foreign governments in ways that threaten U.S. national security and may even have foreign spies currently active on its payroll, according to Peter Mujzatko, whistleblower at the center of a massively public disclosure effort reported Tuesday by CNN and The Washington Post, where democracy goes to die in darkness. A combination of weak cybersecurity controls and poor judgments has repeatedly exposed Twitter to numerous foreign intelligence risks, according to Zatko, who was Twitter's head of security from November 2020 until he was fired in January. From taking money from untrusted Chinese sources to proposing the company give into Russian censorship and surveillance demands, Twitter execs, including now CEO Parag Agrawal, have knowingly put Twitter users and employees at risk in the pursuit of short-term growth, Zatko alleges. Do you know why they're doing that? Because they're being paid for the metadata. CNN sought comment from Twitter on more than 50 distinct questions in response to the overall disclosure, along with specific questions on the allegations outlined in the story. Twitter did not respond to CNN's questions on foreign intelligence risks, but a company spokesperson has said Zatko's allegations overall are riddled with inconsistencies, inaccuracies, and lacks important context. The national security allegations are part of an explosive, nearly 200-page disclosure to Congress, the Justice Department, and federal regulators that accuses Twitter's leadership of covering up critical company vulnerabilities and defrauding the public. Zatko, a longtime cybersecurity expert who has had senior roles at Google, Stripe, and Defense Department, submitted his disclosure to authorities last month after what he described as months of trying to unsuccessfully sound the alarm inside Twitter about the dangers that it faced. Now, this is important. This is going to shift what's going to happen with as far as the Twitter deal. Number one, with Twitter telling Musk that it's a safe platform, and two, telling him that it's not botted to hell. But I do also question whether or not this is going to be used as a way to go get it shut down before Musk can officially take it over and start to do some sort of improvements to the site, or open up the free speech, or even bring the former president back. So I have some questions about this, but one of the big ones for this is actually a named source. I mean, typically when we hear whistleblower this, whistleblower that, and it's coming from both sides. I'm looking at you, Jim Jordan. It's just, I have a source familiar with this. So, we'll see what's going with this. Of course, Congress is looking into this from Yahoo Finance. Coming from Engadget, Congress is looking into Twitter whistleblowers' claim of lax security. From Chris Holt. Senate and congressional committee leaders from both sides of the aisle are looking into claims from Twitter's former security chief that the platform has extreme, egregious deficiencies in terms of protections against hackers and attackers. Famed hacker Peter Zatko, who took over Twitter's security division in 2020 and left the Post in January, accused the company in a whistleblower complaint of having questionable cybersecurity defenses and weak measures to fend off spam. Democrat Rep. Frank Pallone Jr. and Republican Kathy McMorris Rogers, the chair and ranking member of the House Energy and Commerce Committee, respectively, say that they are assessing the next steps following allegations, according to Washington Post. They said the complaint underscores how important it is for Congress to protect people's data by passing consumer privacy legislation. The whistleblower's allegations of widespread security failures at Twitter, willful misrepresentations by top executives to government agencies, and penetration of the company by foreign intelligence raises serious concerns, Judiciary Committee Chair Dick Durbin wrote on Twitter. So that's fantastic. Congress is going to look into social media companies selling our personal data. From CNBC, Twitter whistleblower could help Musk by adding volatility to legal battle. Coming to CNBC via Reuters. A whistleblower complaint that Twitter misled federal regulators about the company's security risks could provide Elon with fresh ammunition in his bid to get out of buying the company for $44 billion. Dude, I still think that he wants to... I think he wants to buy it. I just don't think he wants to spend $44 billion on it. I think he wants to get it for a bargain. I think $44 billion was the big ask. The whistleblower complaint by Twitter's former security chief, Peter Zatko, gives Musk new angles to pursue in his legal battle, such as claims that Twitter failed to disclose weaknesses in its security and data privacy. It provides a different basis for fraud, said Ann Lipton, a professor at Tulane Law School. It's not clear if and how Musk's team will use the whistleblower information, although Musk's lawyer, Alex Spiro, with Quinn Emanuel Urquhart and Sullivan, said Tuesday the subpoena had been issued to Zatko. So, some more stuff to watch with that as the Twitter drama unfolds, and in just a couple months we get to see the trial start. So, strap yourselves in. Looks like we just lost Wes Fanning, and I was about to go read one from his home neighborhood. From the New York Post, Maloney cries misogyny after Nadler knocks her off in nasty primary fight. From Bernadette Hogan, Kyle Schinzer, and Carl Campanile. Want some cheese with that wine, Carolyn? After Gerald Nadler cruised to victory over Carolyn Maloney in Tuesday's contentious Democrat primary to represent the 12th District, ousting his longtime colleague after 3 decades in office in the process, Maloney whined that she was the victim of sexist systems and misogyny, as her supporters vented their wrath at her victorious opponent. I'm really sad that we no longer have a woman representing Manhattan in Congress, Maloney told her teary-eyed boosters, later adding, in Congress, it is that when women are at the table, great decisions get made. The longtime lawmaker also thanked great female New Yorkers of the past like Shirley Chisholm and Geraldine Ferraro, whom Maloney said fought sexist systems and misogyny that continues today. As we know from my own campaign, an obvious dig at Nadler. The mood had been even uglier about an hour earlier as celebratory Nadler addressed his supporters in the Upper West Side. Maloney's backers at her party in the Chelsea booed and jeered the House Judiciary Committee chair's televised speech, with some yelling, "Traitor." I gotta know, in all honesty. Now again, this is still funny. I'm sorry, but this is still absolutely hilarious. Who looks at Gerald Nadler with his belt up around his man titties, who clearly crapped himself on stage and said, yeah, I want that guy. Like, who looks at that and says, yeah, that's who I want representing me. That dude right there. Not that either one of the candidates that were districted together in New York were any good, but man, I have a problem trying to figure out, yeah, that guy. That's the guy for me. Alright, I guess we gotta cover just a couple more things and then head out of here for the day. I think we are going to hold off. So I think we'll do these two, this one, and then thing I like and thing I hate. I think that's how we're gonna finish out today. So just speaking of primaries, I thought it important for us to talk about this here. Charlie Crist got into the news here today, telling us what it is that who he wants voting for him. Greg Price tweets out, Crist, those who support DeSantis should stay with him and vote for him. I don't want your vote. If you have that hate in your heart, keep it there.
Those who support the governor should stay with him and vote for him, and I don't want your vote. If you have that hate in your heart, keep it there. I want the vote of the people of Florida who care about our state. Good Democrats, good independents, good Republicans. Unify with this ticket.
The othering has begun, by the way. And just so you know, this is the same kind of thing. If you support this enemy, you're subhuman. I don't want that hate in your heart anywhere near me. You're less than a person, and get away from me. This is the dehumanization that comes right before you start to get ready to exterminate 6 million members of a certain population group. Christina Pushaw, your terms are acceptable. And Defiant L's has the back and forth. Charlie Crist, 8/23/2022. So this is only a couple days apart from each other. Charlie Crist, DeSantis fights to divide. I fight to unite. And Marley Martinez Wesh, WESH rather. Charlie Crist tells Governor DeSantis supporters, I don't want your vote. Yeah, that's sure fighting to unite, not divide. And before we do thing that I like and thing that I hate, I had to see it, so you have to see it. We get to go listen to this crazy bastard again.
So CNN's anchor Jake Tapper just shared an article that said, quote, Dr. Oz can outwork and defeat John Fetterman. And just this morning, Jake Tapper said Donald Trump has a, quote, fairly good shot at prevailing in court. Just last week, Jake Tapper retweeted Jared Kushner's new book of lies, promoting his book to all of his million followers. Jake Tapper has lost all journalistic integrity, and he's lost all credibility and respect. Shame on you, Jake Tapper, for siding with the MAGAs in a time where we need to unite to defeat fascism. Shame on you. So CNN...
Shame on you! You stopped giving the propaganda that I wanted. Shame on you! I still say this person is trying to be a knockoff Ron Perlman. Can you imagine him at the beginning of Fallout? War! War never changes! Alright, let's do a thing that I like and thing that I hate and head out of here for the day. The thing I like today, I took some time over the weekend, and I'm doing more of this. I've actually been pretty active this summer. I've even surprised myself a little bit, and I'm starting to feel it in the pants. Not that way. Get your mind out of the gutter. But no, like, my work pants are set down. Because of the way that the uniform company size pants, it's you do have to go a couple inches up over what you normally do. But I mean, my work pants are falling off right now, and a large amount of what I've been doing has been attributed to the Ice Age Trail, a series of trails that are interconnected that go and pass all the way through my state. So the thing I like today is the Ice Age Trail itself. Now, if you are touring Wisconsin, again, let me know, and we'll go find a segment of this and go and have at it. Now, and I kind of like the fact that they actually put this up here, right there. If you are touring Wisconsin and hiking, you'll know you found the Ice Age Trail because you'll find a little vertical stripe of yellow, just like that, on trees and signposts throughout the trail. I didn't realize when I first started going on the Ice Age Trail, which runs right over there. And actually, it's right out there, too, because of the way that it wraps around the city that I live in. I thought it was just one small trail that was dead flat and dead straight, because that's what it is in this segment that's closest to me. Second closest to me. The segment that I would hike last year and the year before is just dead straight, might as well be paved. No curves, no nothing, dead flat. But I've been exploring it a little more. Last year I went up and went on the part of the trail that goes through Devil's Lake, and I mean, that's probably one of the most aggressive hiking trails that I've ever been on in my life. I might have to do that yet before the summer's out. I might do that over the weekend, or I might go the other direction, the segment that I went today, or this past weekend. This past weekend, I went out and I grabbed a segment and I put 7 miles on my boots, and I just kept pushing myself through. I'm like, I could stop right now, or I could just keep going for a little bit more until I get to another, or I could stop and turn around right now, or I could just go a little bit more. And finally, I hit a road. I didn't get quite to the end of the place that my trail was going to say, and I put a picture on Twitter of the sign out there saying that Bald Bluff was 7.1 miles out from where I'd started from. I posted that sign out on Twitter, but I was impressed, knowing the fact that the trail that I had normally started on was just dead flat and basically just a flat, straight sidewalk that goes from Redacted to Janesville. But now looking more and seeing, and especially around here too, there's a part on the other side of Redacted that is fairly aggressive and fairly fun to go back on, but also the segment that I went on to a little bit further down the road from me, that's, I believe, marked as a horse trail as well, so you can bring a horse out there. I know that when I was out there, I saw people were loading a horse back into the trailer when I first got there. I almost went over and asked them, because as rural as I am, I never learned how to ride a horse. I've always wanted to, and even though I'm nearly 40 years old, I've just never had the opportunity now. Say, hey, can we go a little bit and show me the basics at all? But the segment down there is fairly aggressive, and I kind of either want to go back up and hit Devil's Lake again over the weekend, or conversely or alternately go out and go the other direction from the spot that I started from last time, just to see where it is and how far it goes. Or go out, there's another country road that goes out of town that leads to another parking lot for another spot that you can start from on it as well. But the trail itself is quite long, quite extensive. And this is their interactive map, which we can zoom in and out of for Wisconsin and, maybe not see quite where I live, but it's on there. And it comes all the way in from Polk County over from Minnesota. And I don't know if at some point I maybe have to go but it comes in from St. Croix Falls. I'll have to maybe ask oh no, not that Mimi over on Twitter, if she knows if there's a trail that goes into Minnesota from the other side after you cross the river. I know the Mississippi River isn't up there anymore. That's the St. Croix River. But once you get across the St. Croix River up in Wisconsin into Minnesota, if there is trail that continues over into Minnesota or not. But obviously the Ice Age Trail is a Wisconsin thing, so they only show the Wisconsin side. But yeah, you go all the way up around Rice Lake, well above Eau Claire, come back down through some of the rural areas and up around Merrill. And then back down through the spine of the state. Looks like it splits and goes either up around Adams, which I'll have to see because I know this area somewhat, and then down into Devil's Lake State Park. Otherwise, it goes down and goes through Columbia County and goes down around to Portage and places like that. So, and then comes back down around here. I mean, you guys all know that I live in this area, so I'm not doxing myself by that. But yep, swings around here and then swings itself back up and all the way up into the Door Peninsula. So a lot of cool sites that are on here, a lot of places that you can see as well. I'd like to get and maybe see all 1,000 miles of it. I don't know if I can do it in a single season or not, but maybe see an extended part of that. Or maybe even I saw when I was getting ready to leave on Sunday, when I was just getting back to my truck, a young woman was backpacking. She had full pack on, and I don't know how far she intended to go, but maybe camp a little bit along the way as well. But yeah, it's not just the flat piece of trail that I thought that it was, the flat piece of clearing between a few trees that butts up against some various properties around here. It actually is a long, extensive trail with some aggressive portions, some mild portions, and I mean, again, if you're in Wisconsin, let me know, and we'll go hit that for a little bit. We'll go hit the trails and see where they take us. But that is the Ice Age Trail. That is the thing I like today. And now for a thing that I hate. A couple things that I hate. I did see your comment yesterday, Horatius. I actually have that up in another tab. I found it right before the show today because I was up really late last night getting all this set up. So I will look into that probably a little bit after work, because at this point I have to go back and run off to work. But yeah, I see where you're coming from off that, and that does look cool. I will raise you this and ask if you've ever seen the Flopatron. And if not, we'll talk about that maybe tomorrow. Just because that's something I very much enjoy, and now that I see the Tesla foil music, now I think of the Flopatron. Now for a couple things that I hate. Thing that I hate number one comes again out of the great state of New York, because they are cracking down on your ability to own a firearm in one way or another. They will find a way to deny you that permit, one way or another. Since they can't come out and say, oh, well, it's just because if you have a really good reason or not. Hochul says social media questions are now part of your background checks. Let's listen to what the governors of New York have to say.
It's not how we're doing it in New York anymore. We also talked about, I mentioned social media a number of times. I've called upon and working closely with our Attorney General to identify what's going on in social media. Those questions are now part of our background checks, just like in the old days, you'd talk to someone's neighbor. Now you can talk to their neighbors online and find out whether or not this person has been spouting philosophies that indicate that they have been radicalized, and that's how we protect our citizens as well. It's not how we're doing it in New York anymore. We also talked about...
So there you go. They will go out of their way to find a reason to not allow you to defend yourself. And, you know, there are people out there. Pretty sure this is all unconstitutional, says Danny Brightman. Dylan Liu says, this is totally normal. We had agents ask us about our neighbors a lot when I lived near D.C., just to ask what they were like because they work for the government. And I said, I mean, that's a little bit different than asking the neighbors when you want to buy something to defend your home and yourself. I should have gone on with that. It's a little bit different when you're seeking a security clearance over, or whether you just want to defend your home in case somebody kicks down the door, especially in D.C. I mean, come on. No, there is not any deals on land out this way. In fact, it's still overbloated right now. Wait till spring. Trust me, that's what I'm doing. I'm going to try and stick around in here until spring and see what we can do. So, that's the thing that I hate, number one. The thing that I hate, number two, comes from our friends out on the West Coast this time. And you guys know how much I love automobiles in and of themselves. The thrill, the smell of gasoline, the smell of diesel. The thrill of hearing that exhaust burble warm up. Those diesel injectors start to strain as they pump more fuel into there to try to get the pull going. But that may not be a possibility for California anymore. And I really hate this because I've got a cousin who basically makes his living designing race parts in California. And I wonder if this is going to affect him at all. I should text him and ask him that. But from The Verge, California is ready to drag the rest of the U.S. into the EV age. From Andrew J. Hawkins. California is poised to ban the sale of new gas-powered vehicles, a far-reaching policy that's likely to reverberate through the rest of the country and the world. On Thursday, the California Air Resources Board will issue the new rules that were first rolled out by Governor Newsom in 2020, which would require 100% of new cars sold in the state to be free of carbon emissions, according to the New York Times, a former newspaper. The rule would phase in over time, with 35% of new passenger vehicles sold by 2026 and 68% by 2030. California says that over 16% of new car sales were zero-emission vehicles in 2022, up from 12.41% last year and 7.78% in 2020. I have a question. What if 35% of the people don't want an electric vehicle? And that's a legitimate question. What if 35% of your new car buying population doesn't want that? What if they want the cute little Beetlebug with a diesel engine? What if they want the 250 to go back and haul around the horses of the wine in Napa Valley? And I'm talking about the phase-in, obviously, not necessarily just what they're going to do with it, but yeah, what if your people don't want that? What do you do then? Hey, I'd like to go buy this this Honda Civic here. I'm sorry, you can't buy this Honda Civic. Well, why not? I have cash. Well, see, California has already reached its 35% gas cars for the year. But it's only February. What do I do? I want to buy this car and I want to buy it now. Well, have you tried this Tesla? It's ambitious, it's innovative. It's probably going to get struck down somewhere in court. It's the action we must take if we're serious about leaving this planet better off for future generations. Newsom said in a statement, California will continue to lead the revolution towards our zero-emission transportation future. What's zero-emission transportation future? Your cars are powered by coal. California's stance on new car sales is extremely consequential given the state's status as a standard bearer for clean air regulations. To date, 14 other states have adopted its progressive zero-emission vehicle program for passenger vehicles, which was launched in the early 90s and has spurred automakers to develop hybrid and fully electric cars. California is also one of the largest markets for car sales in the world, with nearly 15 million registered vehicles on the road, 1.85 million new vehicle registrations in 2021. Look, I understand that there are a lot of people who want the electric vehicle. I am not one of them. I may in the future, once they get a lot of the bugs and kinks worked out of them and have the infrastructure for them, I might actually enjoy that. I think electric cars are cool. But I don't want to buy one yet. Number one, I don't have $60,000 to go out and buy a new electric vehicle. And guess where demand is going to go, by the way? What happens with supply and demand if you can only buy one kind of vehicle in one of the largest states in the country? That's just going to make that price go up even further and further. But hey, it's California and you can't hardly tell them what they want to do. I would not mind, and I'm going to say this and probably be a little bit unpopular among everybody else. I wouldn't mind actually having like a little Leaf or Civic or something just to tool around the farm or get back and forth to town or whatnot. If I got it off the used market. But yeah, for most of what I'm going to be doing, especially if once I buy property, I might even have to upgrade myself to a compression ignition engine, not a spark ignition engine. But, I don't know. It's California, so they're going to tell you how it is that you can pollute the air. But that's all we have for the day. Oh, the Song of Storms. Looks like they added a new album into the rotation on the Video Game Study Lounge. By the way, I don't know if you guys have gone and checked this out or not. There might be some new ones in here. Oh, I gotta go refresh it. Yeah, I wouldn't mind having one, but it's not going to be my primary mode of transportation. That's the thing with me. But it's a cool supplement. Alright, let's get out of here before we have the argument about electric vehicles and I still have to go to work. Alright, so with that, we are done for the day. We're out of here for the day. Looking forward to seeing everybody back here tomorrow. And by the way, stick around and hang around tomorrow because we do sit down and read the live chat at the end of the show. We look into and go over some of the things that we can say. Meanwhile, trying to remember that we're catering to an AM radio audience that may or may not have the kids in the car. So if you chatted, your name will be in this notebook and we will definitely come back and enjoy your company and say thank you to everybody here and look into some of the stuff that you guys are saying in the live chat tomorrow. So come back for that. What are we going to talk about tomorrow? Probably student loan stuff. We'll probably talk about some of this Twitter stuff as well. I don't know. What else is happening in the news? Maybe we'll talk about Ukraine again. I don't know. Or maybe we'll just have the entire show be student loan forgiveness once again because the news media is really good at keeping us talking about the one thing that they want us to talk about while the sleight of hand is doing something else where we're not paying attention. But we will have to see. This is fluid and we find out what's going on throughout the day. Definitely. Come back and join me here tomorrow for more Contemporary, more news, more headlines, and we will see you then. And until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.